Why do you have no discipline? Be honest. How many times have you said, "This time I'll do it right," and didn't? You planned. You felt motivated. You even started. But somehow, you stopped. Again. And after a while, you stopped trusting yourself. You began to think maybe discipline isn't for you. Maybe you're just not that kind of person. But what if that's not true? What if the problem is not your lack of discipline, but your misunderstanding of it? Look closely at your day. You wake up and reach for your phone. You plan to focus, but get distracted. You say you'll start later, and later never comes. And at the end of the day, there's a quiet frustration, because deep down you know you're capable of more. So what's really happening? Why does it feel like you're fighting against yourself? The Stoics believe this struggle is not accidental. It's internal, a conflict between what you want now and what you want most. One part of you seeks comfort, the other seeks growth, and every day, one of them wins. But here's the truth most people avoid. Discipline is not about forcing yourself. It's about understanding what is controlling you. Because if you don't control your mind, something else will. And once you see this clearly, everything begins to change. You think your problem is discipline, but it's not. It's something deeper, something most people never notice. Your environment is training your mind to be weak. Look around you. Everything is designed to make things easier, faster, more comfortable. Food delivered instantly, entertainment, endless, distraction, always available. You don't have to wait. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to resist anything. And at first, this feels like freedom, but over time, it becomes a trap. Because your mind adapts. It gets used to comfort. It expects ease. And when something requires effort, it resists, not because you're lazy, but because you've been conditioned to avoid discomfort. Think about it. When was the last time you chose the harder option on purpose? When was the last time you did something difficult without distraction, without escaping? This is where discipline is lost. Not in big moments, but in small repeated decisions. The Stoics understood this clearly. They knew that comfort, if left unchecked, becomes control. And once comfort controls you, effort starts to feel unnatural, even painful, so you delay, you postpone, you tell yourself you'll do it later, but later rarely comes, and slowly, without noticing, you lose control over your own actions. But here's the important question. If your environment shaped this, can you take that control back? The Stoics saw this problem long before you. Not phones, not social media, but the same human weakness, the desire for comfort, over growth. Epictetus once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Read that again. You don't lack time. You lack direction. You lack control over what you do with your time. And that's where discipline begins. Not in motivation, not in feeling ready, but in action. Marcus Aurelius wrote something powerful. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Think about that. If your mind is not under your control, then what is? Your habits, your attention, your decisions? Or are they being pulled by impulse, by distraction, by comfort? The Stoics believe discipline is not about intensity. It's about alignment, doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. Because feelings change. They rise and disappear. But your actions, those define your life. Seneca warned about this clearly. While we are postponing, life speeds by. Every time you delay, you're not just losing time, you're reinforcing a pattern of hesitation, of avoidance, of weakness. And over time, that becomes your identity. But here's the shift. You are not your impulses. You are not your distractions. You are not your lack of discipline. You are what you choose to do next. And that choice is still in your control. So if you understand all this, why do you still fail? Why do you start and stop? Why do you promise yourself and break it? It's not because you don't know what to do. You already know. Wake up earlier. Focus more. Avoid distractions. Do the work. You've heard it all before, so why doesn't it change anything? Because your problem is not knowledge, it's trust. The trust you have in yourself. Every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," and don't, something small breaks inside. Not instantly, not loudly, but slowly, quietly. You begin to doubt your own words, your own decisions, your own intentions, and after a while, your mind stops believing you. Think about that. If someone constantly made promises and never followed through, would you trust them? Of course not. So why would your mind trust you? This is the hidden damage of broken discipline. It's not just lost time, it's lost self-respect. And without self-respect, everything becomes harder. Even simple tasks start to feel heavy, because deep down there's resistance, not to the task, but to yourself. And this creates a cycle. You avoid effort, you feel guilty, you delay again, and the cycle repeats day after day. But here's what most people never realize. You don't need more motivation. You need to rebuild trust, slowly, deliberately, through action, because discipline is not something you have, it's something you prove to yourself. So how do you fix this? Not with a big plan, not with a sudden burst of motivation, but with something much simpler and much harder. You stop trying to change everything, and you start controlling one thing, one decision, at a time. Most people fail because they think discipline is extreme. Wake up at 5 a.m., change your entire routine, become a different person overnight. But that's not discipline, that's pressure. And pressure is brakes. The Stoics approached this differently. They focused on what was in front of them. What can I do? Right now. Not perfectly, not impressively, but consistently. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Simple, but not easy, because it requires honesty, not with the world, but with yourself. Can you follow through on something small, something almost insignificant? Because that's where discipline begins, not in big victories, but in quiet decisions, doing what you said you would do, even when no one is watching, even when you don't feel like it. And here's the shift most people miss. Discipline is not about intensity, it's about identity. Every action you take is a vote for the person you're becoming. So instead of asking, how do I become disciplined? Ask yourself, what would a disciplined person do right now? And then do exactly that. If this idea is starting to make sense to you, it means you're already thinking differently. And that's where real change begins. Now let's make this real, because understanding is not enough. You need something you can actually do. Today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. The Stoics practiced something simple, but uncomfortable, voluntary discipline. They didn't wait for life to force them into difficulty, they chose it. Seneca practiced this often. He would eat simple food, wear plain clothing, live with less, even when he didn't have to. Why? To train his mind, to remind himself that comfort is not a necessity, it's a preference, and preferences should never control you. So here's a simple practice. Choose one small discomfort, something safe, something controlled. Take a cold shower, work without music, put your phone away for a set period of time. Finish a task without switching screens. It sounds small, almost insignificant, but that's the point. Because when you choose discomfort, you break the pattern. You stop reacting automatically. You start acting intentionally, and that changes everything. At first, your mind will resist. It will look for excuses. It will try to delay. But that resistance is the training. Every time you face it and move anyway, you become stronger, not physically, but mentally. And over time, what once felt difficult becomes normal. That's how discipline is built. Quietly, daily, without drama. At the end of the day, discipline is not about tasks. It's about a battle, an internal one, quiet, invisible, but constant. Every moment, there are two voices inside you. One says, "Do it later. Rest a little more. You deserve comfort." The other says, "Do it now. Stay focused. Keep your word." Both are always there, and the one that wins is the one you listen to most. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could be good today, but instead, you choose tomorrow." That's the battle. Not between you and the world, but between you, and here's the truth most people avoid. The easy voice gets stronger every time you obey it. Every delay, every excuse, every moment of avoidance feeds it. But the same is true for the other voice, the disciplined one. It starts weak, almost silent, easy to ignore. But every time you act despite resistance, it grows a little stronger, a little clearer, until one day it becomes your default, and the battle becomes easier. Not because life changed, but because you did. So the question is not, do you have discipline? The real question is, which voice are you training today? Because whatever you repeat, you become. At some point, discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity, not something you try to do, but something you are. This is the shift, the one most people never reach, because they stay focused on results, on outcomes, on motivation. But the Stoics focused on something deeper, character. Epictetus taught, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Think about that. No need to talk about discipline, no need to prove anything. Your actions speak quietly, consistently, without noise. That's real power. Because when discipline becomes identity, you no longer negotiate with yourself. You don't ask, "Should I do this?" You simply act. You do what needs to be done. Not because it's easy, not because you feel like it, but because it's who you are. And something else changes too. You stop chasing quick results, you stop looking for shortcuts, because you understand something most people don't. Results are a consequence, not a goal. The real goal is becoming someone who follows through, someone who finishes what they start, someone who can be trusted by others, and more importantly, by themselves. And when you reach that point, discipline is no longer a struggle. It becomes your standard. Discipline is not something you're born with, it's something you build. One decision at a time. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you build it. Every time you act instead of delay, you build it. Every time you keep your word, even when it's hard, you build it. And slowly your life begins to change. Not all at once, but in direction. Because discipline doesn't transform your life overnight. It transforms your days, and your days must create your life. So the next time you think, "I have no discipline," remember this. You're not lacking discipline, you're practicing something else. Delay, comfort, avoidance. And whatever you practice, you become better at. So the real question is, what are you training every day? Take a moment. Be honest with yourself, because that answer is shaping your future. Now I want to hear from you. What is one small action that you know you've been avoiding? Write it in the comments, make it real. And if you want to keep building a stronger mind, step by step, with clarity and without noise, subscribe to the channel, not for motivation, but for discipline. Because while the world keeps distracting you, a focused mind keeps moving forward.